Hi, happy Wednesday. Today I'm gonna go over not all of, but some of the books that I read in 2019. I honestly don't really remember all the books that I read in 2019, but I have a little pile on my lap, so we'll start there in no particular order. So the first book that I have here is We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. Is that how you pronounce her name? LaCour? So I really loved this book at first. As I read it, like, I was really enjoying it. And spoilers, by the way, I'm probably gonna spoil almost every book in this list. So if you don't want to get any spoilers, but I think all of these books are old news at this point. But I was loving this book until it got to the very end. And a lot of people, when I said that like I was super disappointed by the ending, a lot of people were thinking I was talking about how mental health was used as a plot twist. And I just didn't see it like that. Just the whole story about, was it her father or her grandfather? I don't remember. But like about this loved one of hers just like slowly deteriorating and getting sick and dying. And then discovering that on top of that, he was also kind of mentally going. And I don't think that's a cheap plot twist, just because of my own experiences with that kind of thing happening. And so I thought that that was just like super heavy. I didn't think it was using mental health as a plot twist or something. Like, that's not the problem that I had. The problem that I had with this book was how the ending was like a fix-it fic that someone wrote because they were upset that it didn't have a happy ending. Like, this book feels like it had a happy ending for no reason. It just felt like this character spent this whole book learning about like how to be alone and like loss, and then the ending was going to be her opportunity to be able to sit with that. But nope. I really love sad endings though. So maybe I'm just bitter that it had a happy ending, but the happy ending just felt almost like fake. Like, I don't know how else to put it. It was just overly positive for no reason. So I haven't done this yet, but as soon as I finished that last chapter of this book, I was like, okay, I need to wait until I forget the contents of this entire book and then just stop reading as soon as her friend and her family leaves. And then I think I'll enjoy the ending a lot more if I just don't read that last chapter, because that was such a disappointment. And the next book that I have here is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. And it's pronounced Wilder Girls, right? Because when I first saw it, I was like balls deep into like Oscar Wilde shit. So I was like, Wilder Girls? But I think it's Wilder Girls, right? Full disclosure, I bought this book mostly entirely because the cover just reminds me of the type of art that I really like to make. So I bought it because the cover is pretty, but but honestly, the concepts in this book were super cool. It's about an all-girls school on this island that becomes quarantined because of a disease called the tox, and it causes the girls to mutate along with like the wildlife on the island that the school is on. And especially reading what the author had to say in the back of the book about what inspired the book, it was all really cool stuff that I like am super interested in too, but it was disappointing in a weird way because I liked it, but it just felt like the plot never really thickened. And when it did feel like the plot was thickening, the payoff just wasn't there for me. But like I said, like I liked the story, I liked the concept. It just fell a little short. And another thing, and I get this feeling a lot with a lot of books, but like this one especially, I kind of wished I was watching a movie of this instead of reading a book. And like, Yeah, partially because I'm dyslexic, partially because it's harder for books to hold my attention sometimes because I'm dyslexic, but also just because this book is so heavy with visuals. I think it would make a really great film, especially if they went back into the story and kind of really fleshed out what the plot twists were going to be, what the progression of the story was. I think that I don't know, I just see a lot of film potential in this book. Like, if I was a screenwriter, I'd be all over this. But I like how she did the ending. I liked that it was sort of open-ended like that. I liked the whole conspiracy thing, but it just felt like the way that it was revealed, I don't know. I don't know how to put it into words, but something about this book just fell short for me. And it's really disappointing because this is a book that, like I said, like, conceptually, I love it. I love it so much. Okay, next book I have here in my lap is Hatsune Mix by Kei. So I haven't actually read a manga in years. I actually bought this book in 2014 when I first moved to Philly, and I never read it. I don't know why, but I just never got around to reading it. I got it because when I was a kid, the Hatsune Mix manga was going on in Japan, and so there were fan translations all over the internet, and I was super into Vocaloid. So I was reading the fan translations, and then when I came up here and went to the bookstore and saw it on the shelf, I was like, whoa, that exists now? So I was super hype about it. And then I just never read it. But I read it this year, just a couple months ago actually, and it's super cute. But it's also super weird. But I feel like that might just be true of like most manga and anime. Like, I'm rewatching Tokyo Mew Mew right now, and it's like, it's weird. Like, Tokyo Mew Mew is a weird show. And I first watched it when I was 10 or 11, and I was super into it. Like, Mew Ichigo was my first cosplay. Yeah, so I was super into it back then, but now going back and rewatching it now, fucking weird. But what I really, really love about this book is it's also kind of like just a great art book. Like, I really, really love Kei's art style. Yeah, this was just like a really fun, nostalgic read for me. It actually made me go back and listen to a lot of Vocaloid songs. Okay, and the last book that I have here in my lap is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. And I've mentioned this book in, I think, the last like 3 videos that I made, but I read it entirely because there was a trailer for the movie that came out with Terrible Love by the National playing in the background, and I was just like, oh, I gotta read. Just the whole trailer was full of like gender and aesthetic. Like, I had to do it. I had to read it. And this book is fucking huge. Like, it's a big book, and I read this in like a week and a half, maybe a little less. Like, I just got so into this book. Like, I loved it so much. I was reading it everywhere I went, just constantly reading this book. Boris is my favorite character, hands down. Like, Boriskin would slob squat with Boris. As far as other books that I read goes, that I just don't have with me right now, I finished the Leviathan series this year. I don't know why it took me so long to just read the 3rd book, but I finished that, and that was a complete reread. The Leviathan series is by Scott Westerfeld, and it takes place in a steampunk, like, alternate version of World War I, and it's super cool. Like, I loved it in high school, and I just felt like rereading it this year for nostalgia purposes. The one thing that I can't really stand about this series, though, is that Nikola Tesla is a character in the story. He just really bothers me. The way that he's characterized in the story bothers me. Like, I just don't like when real people show up in fiction like that. I don't know why. It just drives me nuts. Like, I wish that you would have just created a character that was clearly supposed to be Nikola Tesla, but wasn't actually Nikola Tesla, because I already don't really care for historical fiction that much. The only reason that I think I have any attachment to this series is because in high school I had a super steampunk phase and I really like the Edwardian era. You know, I have an emotional attachment to that series more than anything, and it just bothers me so much that Nikola Tesla is in the series. Another book that I read was the first book that the author of We Are Okay, what was that called? I have to Google it. Hold Still. I read Hold Still by Nina LaCour. Didn't like that one so much. I think I even unhauled it. I actually remembered next to nothing about that book, which probably speaks volumes. Okay, I will say that book kind of like made me wish that I was just more defiant in high school, because literally nothing mattered. Everything feels like it matters so much when you're in it, but then you look back and you're like, I could have just had a fucking meltdown. Why did I ever not just like walk off campus and not come back, you know? So there was a lot of like that kind of feeling with that book, and I guess in a way it was sort of like secondhand wish fulfillment, because unless I'm thinking of a completely different book, but I don't think I am. There was kind of like a lot of that, yes, be a delinquent, because I cannot. Okay, and the last book that I'm going to talk about that I read this year was The Martian. The Martian was very good. However, it felt like the author didn't know how to like incorporate human emotion into the story properly. This is best illustrated by the fact that he had to put like the moral of the story at the end of the story. Like, he had to spell it out for you. You shouldn't have to do that. It was a very like tell rather than show kind of ending, instead of weaving it into the story and making it emotionally connect that like, yeah, wow, humanity really did come together for this one person, for this one cause, and that's a beautiful thing. Instead, there was just a lot of weird, clunky dialogue that sounded very, like, conspicuously sci-fi, I guess. Like, it just didn't feel like the way that humans talk to each other. And I just feel like the author just doesn't know how to write people. Like, the story was super cool and the science was like pretty sound, or so like I've heard from people who know way more about science than I do, but like the emotion wasn't there. The connectedness just wasn't there on like a human level, and so it just felt weird when he had to explain what the point was at the end. But yeah, that's all the books that I read in 2019, or at least all the ones that I have things to say about. Yeah, let me know what your favorite books were that you read this year, and if you read any of the ones that I mentioned, because I'd be super interested to hear what you thought of them. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.